Welcome back, students. Okay, so we're in geogebra.org materials. So this is a concept map branching out into the various strands of maths. They split geometry and trigonometry into two strands, as they should be. Calculus, don't worry about that. Probability, algebra, functions, statistics, arithmetic. So in junior cert, you'll be studying everything here, bar calculus, and in leaving cert, everything here. Okay, so transformations, closely connected with symmetry in GeoGebra is an area we're going to look at. So let's go into geometry first and see what's here. So we see symmetry up here, which we'll look at in a bit, but right now we're jumping into transformations. Okay, there are other areas of geometry like solids and maybe shapes. You know, I have plane figures, they call them. I have a real thing about distinguishing between solids and shape. When I hear about a 3D shape, I get upset. Anyway, let's not digress. So here we are now in transformations, and transformations are ways of moving points, line segments, and any geometry shape around, possibly changing its shape, in which case you're dilating it. That's leaving cert only. However, the idea would come under similarity, similar triangles, and so on. Let's look at translations. Okay, so let's jump straight into Steve Phelps, at least, translation app here. So what we seem to have here is we have a translation being a directed line segment or a vector. Okay, which if it's set to 0, it doesn't matter what direction it's going because it doesn't have a direction. Then once it has a value, it has a direction. So let's say I make it about 1 centimeter, then I can go in any of the direction, in any direction around a point. Okay, so that gives you the idea. I can change the, so this here is called the object, and you can see it is exactly congruent to the image. So this is the image, and we use A prime, B prime, C prime for the image of the point. So the important thing to note here is by moving the 3 points that define the vertex of a triangle, then you have the definition of your image triangle. Okay, that's all very nice, and that's your translations. We'll look at the maths of them later on. Now let's look at rotation. So here's our object, and here's our point which we're rotating it about. Let's rotate it about the corner C first of all. And can I move this? I can't move that anyway. Can I move my, I'd like it just to separate it out. It's not free to move. I can adapt that. I can make a copy and adapt that. But let's leave it there. So what if I was to rotate around 0 degrees? Well, then nothing's happening. And as I increase the degrees, I'm increasing the, note that it's happening anti-clockwise, just as this degree is opened up this way. So I could rotate it, say 180, and it's gone around to there. And of course, if I rotate it all the way back, go back to where I started and go around in circles, yippee, lovely dovey, lovely dovey. That's great, lovely. Of course, I can change the original shape, and so on. I'd like you to explore that app. Again, but it's the same app. It's in Stephen Phelps. It's one app with several, it's one activity with several apps down along. So we've done rotation. Oh, that's all he has there. Okay, that's fine. So translations. Of course, we were mainly studying translations when we got to here. So just so you know, you can just go back to materials anytime you want by typing in materials there. And you can go back to your concept map. And this is something you might want to do independently. I will show you my apps that I've adapted or made, but you should realize there's a whole load of activities out there that I might not have come across because I might have had time or been lucky enough to stumble upon others that are excellent. So we've looked at translations. The next one we're going to look at is reflections. Okay, so into reflections. Now we just look for one. Maybe works on a triangle. Here's a reflection, again by Stephen Phelps. I'm actually going to make a copy of that activity for myself. Not into the reading business at the very beginning. So I might just at least move that down below the activity anyway. If I manage to do that further down again. Okay, and this is the title, I think, for this activity. So if I delete that, I might End up deleting the whole thing. No, I didn't. Okay, so let's save this. And yeah, so here we have a, okay, we'll blow it up full screen if we can. Actually, I need to close and open again. I think I've saved. Let's close. Bear with me now. Just jump into my own activities to open my copy of it here. Let's drop that into okay, and now we can get a good look at it. So it's the line CD. Okay, as we know from Axiom 1 in our course, any line is uniquely defined by 2 points on it. So we define this line that we want to reflect through, and what's happening then is A is dropping a perpendicular to the line ED and then continuing on by the same amount. Okay, so we're taking its image under axial symmetry in the line ED. Great. We can mess around with the original, but you can't adapt the image. You can't move any of those points. Okay, it's not a two-way thing. The object determines with the shape of the image. Okay, we can make a right angle triangle here. Out pops a right angle triangle down here. We can put one of the vertex on the line. We can even put it across the line. Okay, you get the idea. Pause that.